Samantha Stone, your host of Today in Woburn, and today we have Mayor Scott Galvin with us, and also a recreation director who I have a million questions for, and Rory is being very kind. All of you in the community have helped me ask some really great questions, which we're going to dig into. Before we do that, though, I'd love to welcome our Mayor, Scott, and have some questions for you as well.
Good.
Great. So before we jump into other things, I just want to sort of touch base and close the loop. We had a really beautiful rally in the center that was organized by some high school students last week. You participated in that as well as so many of us. Before we jump into some new topics, is there anything that you'd like to share with the community about that event and what happened there?
Yeah, I mean, the event was great. They had a crowd of well over 500 people. The big thing that struck me was the leadership of the young people in the city, and which is so important going forward, and tackling this issue of racism that's needs to end. So I thought it was great that they were, very respectful, very excited, very enthusiastic, and just well behaved. I thought it was one of the finer days for the city. I really do. I thought it was great.
Yeah, thank you. I was fortunate. I was able to participate. I juggled some meetings around because I really wanted to be there, and I was really proud of our city that day. And for those who are listening and watching who were not able to participate, Woburn Public Media did film a lot of the speeches and such, and that's available for you. So I encourage you to go out and be proud along with us. It was a great coming together of the city. The police force was there to make sure everybody was safe. So many members of the community and so many future leaders with the students.
Yeah, well said. It was great.
That's great. A question, I have gotten no less than 10 individual questions about this. When is the library building opening? I don't know if you have an answer yet, but I wanted to ask you that.
Bonnie was just here, and I said I have to jump on the public media. I'm late. I should have had her stay.
Yeah.
But the public library is included in phase 2, and the library under Bonnie's direction, they have been, I think, amazing over the past 3 months since the whole shutdown. They've been providing great online content. They've been delivering books, delivering to houses who call, and it's a service that I don't know if any other library in the state is doing, but they've gone above and beyond with a very limited staff over there. There's 4 people over there, but we also have custodial staff, and they've been great. So to get to your question, the opening of libraries is allowed in phase 2, which starts today. But that opening, based on what we're reading right now for the next couple of weeks, is very limited to, again, picking up books in the vestibule area. So it's very limited right now. We're hoping that gets expanded, and then we can, to the point where we have, patrons who can actually go inside and use the library with the social distancing, which I'm sure will be part of it. But right now, what's been allowed is really about what we have been doing for the past couple months. So we'll keep on that.
Great. Well, thank you for that. And they have been incredible. I mean, they've been making posters for people. They've been delivering books. They've been putting on online content. It has really been a pride and gem of our community. I'm grateful for that. I did also have a number of people who have heard rumors about layoffs in the library, and they've asked me to address that with you. I know the budgets are all in discussion right now. We don't have final budgets, but is there anything that you can share with us around that?
All I can share with you is there has been contact with the union, which represents the library staff. The one thing that I can wholeheartedly assure all the viewers or anybody that you talk to, nothing has happened yet. If anything does happen, you can be assured that you'll get the same service that you're used to. You'll get the same access to the library. There'll be no changes, but there have been no decisions made about what's going to happen. But we are, responsibly looking at all different parts of the budget.
Okay. Thank you for that. And I know that these are difficult budget decisions that we have happening right now. And we appreciate the transparency with the community about where things are and,
Right.
and such. Anything else that you'd like to share with us before I know you've got some meetings to get on to, and I've got tons of questions for Rory,
No, I
but
think
want to make
it's
sure to
good that
close the loop.
you spent some time with recreation, because we talked about, we're talking about, we did talk, and Rory's got her mute on, but we spoke this morning. We had another meeting with our, the city web advisor that's on updating people about what's happening, because there is great latitude from community to community about what type of, within the framework, there still is latitude about what's going to, be open, and what type of services the recreation is going to provide. And like I said, we want to make sure people have the information on our website. So we met this morning with Rory, Megan Doherty from the Board of Health, and Marie, my assistant, to talk about, how we would update people. But, Rory and Brian have done a great job with recreation over the years. It's certainly going to be a challenging summer like we haven't had, but everything we do now is challenging, and, recreation will step up to the plate, and I'm sure we'll have great services this summer. So
Great.
that's all I have to say. Yeah.
Great. Thank you for joining us, Scott, and appreciate the update
Thanks.
from the
Thanks for
community.
having me. If you have any other questions between now and next Monday, let me know.
You bet. I will
Thanks.
certainly do that.
Bye.
Thank you. Actually, Scott, one more question before you go, and I apologize, but there is one. I just looked at my notes. City Hall opening the physical building to people. Do we know at what point? Is that a phase 3? Is that later this phase?
I think parts of it are this phase 2. And, we're right now, most of our offices are now, have been equipped with plexiglass. We're between cubicles, and, we aren't able to actually physically distance. We have taken care of that. So we're kind of moving toward that direction. And as I keep saying, people, taxpayers and residents can pretty much, I think, have been able to get the same services uninterrupted for the past 3 months. And if somebody isn't able to get what they want, please call my office. But I think every department has stepped up during the coronavirus. But we're looking forward to opening up to the public and letting people back into the building in those responsible manners. So we are really looking forward to that too.
Great. Well, thank you. And I do think most of the services, or all of the services that I've tried to use, I'm selfishly looking forward to taking a photograph with my now 18-year-old as they register to vote in the rotunda, which is sort of a family tradition. But we have a mechanism to register to vote aside from that. So it's certainly not a requirement.
And I don't want to take any more of Rory's time, but I do think that the whole registration process and the voting process, and we're watching the bills, at the State House about the mail-in voting. But that might be a good topic that we could have the city clerk on and talk about that. I'm sure that's something people will be looking forward to. So that's all kinds of topics we can talk about, but that'll be a timely one as well.
Absolutely. I took a little note. Jen and I are going to follow up on that. I think that's an excellent idea.
Good.
Thank you.
Okay.
Great. Thanks, Scott.
Bye,
Appreciate
Samantha.
it. Great. Rory, thank you for joining me today. And we do match in our Woburn orange. I wish I could say that we coordinated that ahead of time, but I think it's just, coincidence. But I appreciate you being here. For those who don't know, Rory is the recreation director, although I don't know if there's anybody in Woburn who doesn't already know that. You have been an important part of our community for a very, very long time, and we appreciate that. With the weather warming up, with some openings starting to happen, we have a whole bunch of questions about what this means for Woburn Rec. And if it's okay with you, I thought I'd just kind of tack down the questions, but if there's something that you'd like to open with before I do that.
No, we can just start. So.
Okay, great. So we're going to start with the most popular question that I received, which is, when will the dog park be open?
That definitely, I think, is the most popular question. And, we were going full steam ahead with getting the park open. And then all of a sudden this pandemic happened and the construction company pretty much got shut down. We were very close to opening at that point. They only had minimal things to complete. We have now completed almost everything. I think the only thing we're really waiting for is the sign, which I've been told is going to be completed hopefully this week. We then obviously need to go through the final walkthrough with the architect and the construction company to make sure that everything is finalized, that they do that before we actually open to the public. So I'm hopeful in a couple weeks we'll be able to open. I mean, it's a great place for people to go and be socially distant. I know that a lot of the dogs have been taking a lot of walks, so I'm sure they'll be excited to be off leash. So we're very
Yes.
excited for that one. Very
I think there's a lot of pet moms and dads who will be excited to have their dogs off leash as well, to have some fun. That's great.
Yeah.
Another question that's come up quite a bit is the open spaces have been available for people for some time, but playground equipment has been closed off for safety reasons. As it's warming up, as you know, people are getting eager to be outside, what is the status of playground equipment being available for use? And what extra precautions do we need to take to keep that a safe environment for us?
So playground equipment is part of phase 2. And as you know, we're just getting kind of pieces in terms of, you know, what happens before each phase. We're not getting it weeks before. So, you know, we're kind of really running on the fly in terms of what we have to prepare to do. I believe they came out with guidelines last Thursday, but we also didn't know that phase 2 was going to happen on Monday. The governor just announced that. So although playgrounds technically in phase 2 are open, some of the ones that we have locked, we haven't unlocked yet. We want to get some proper signage up at them so that, you know, you still need to maintain social distance when you're not able to, you have to wear a mask. They are not disinfected. The CDC recommends that you do not disinfect them. They say that it really doesn't have any bearing on COVID-19, that it's not proven to reduce the risk of COVID-19. So we will not be disinfecting them constantly, and you really can't unless you're constantly doing it after every time somebody touches that, and we don't have the ability to do that. So we're working on signage, you know, with the mayor's office and myself to kind of put some signs up at the playground, and, you know, to ask families to be respectful of the playground equipment too, because I know everybody wants to use them, but just like when you go to a gym, be respectful of the equipment you're using, you know, and use your time so that there's other people waiting, so that you don't have, you know, 50 or 60 people all at one playground, you know, and everybody gets a turn. So
that's really important. Thank you. And I think the big takeaway for us is families should use good hand hygiene and good things. Kids are going to play, kids are going to touch things, and that is part of what happens at a playground, but we're not going to have hand sanitizing and disinfecting happening. So if parents or guardians or whoever's bringing children to a playground should be prepared to make sure they have some mechanism for doing that once the play is done, and also preferably for my own side before they get on the playground equipment, if they can, you know.
Yeah, part of the sign that we'll put up is, you know, good hand washing, wash your hands before you enter the playground, wash your hand after, do not bring any food or drink in there. Whatever you carry in, carry out. You know, if you feel sick, do not come to the playground. Because there's no way to really trace it unless we actually had a playground monitor to really kind of determine who was there if somebody does get sick. So it's kind of your own risk assessment. There are some parents out there that probably will choose to not send their children to the playground, and there's some parents out there that, you know, are okay with it. So it's up to people's own risk assessment as to what they'd like to do in terms of playgrounds.
Great, thank you. And, you know, up to us to protect each other and do the best we can in those circumstances. Let's talk about pools. So as the weather warms up, are we going to be opening the public pools up?
So we have not made a decision regarding that. There are a lot of obstacles that we have encountered. So part of the governor's phase was on June 26th, pools can open up. We just received guidelines on Thursday regarding what they would look like. Some of the guidelines that we've been seeing is that if you can't maintain social distancing on the pool deck, you must wear a mask. That's going to be very difficult for people to use. We would then in turn also have to hire somebody to monitor social distancing at the pool, because that's not something that the lifeguards, they want the lifeguards to handle. They shouldn't. They're responsible for strictly the swimmers in the pool. And we don't have a lot of huge pool areas. There's a lot of other local cities and towns that have already made the decision to close their pools. Lexington, Bedford, Newton, Wilmington, they've already made that decision. It's a very difficult decision. You know, you also need to keep track of who actually enters the pool area as well, with phone numbers and emails, because if somebody does get sick, we need to do some contact tracing. So there's a lot that goes into it. The pools are very expensive to run, And we do not foresee how we will be able to charge people like we normally do, because most of the pools run. We bring in income on all the pool passes that we sell. We're not able to sell. Usually we've sold the majority of our pool passes by now. We haven't been able to sell them. So I don't understand how we could sell a pool pass to a family and then they show up to the pool and we're already at a capacity limit and they're not going to have the ability to use that. So there's a lot of obstacles that go into it. And myself and the mayor have not made a final determination regarding that because it's a big financial impact to open them.
Great. Well, we appreciate the transparency about the decision. We know those aren't easy decisions. And, you know, thank you for sharing an update with us about that. There are some swimming places near us that are like Breakheart Reservation and some other places near us that are not pools for those who rely on them to cool off. Maybe we can, you know, in the interim while the decision is being made, or if the decision is made to definitely not open pools, make sure we're communicating with people where some of those other places are to give themselves some reliefs as the weather gets warmer for longer periods of time.
Yeah.
Great. Let's talk about programming overall. So the summer is typically a busy time. I imagine by this point you've typically hired a number of people to help run programs. There's all kinds of camps and classes and things. What does our summer and fall programming look like at this point?
So our summer programming, so we never put out our summer brochure. We decided this year before, you know, COVID-19 happens, we wanted to put out a spring brochure, and then we wanted to put out a summer brochure. And then all of a sudden, you know, this pandemic happened. So we never ended up putting out a summer brochure, unlike other rec departments. So we never really have programs up. A lot of the programs that we run, we don't run camps here because we don't have an indoor location. So we run different morning clinics. We run different afternoon clinics. And a lot of the traditional programs that we've run, we're not going to be able to run. Some of the guidelines that we are receiving are we have to have small groups of 10 and that the instructors need to stay with that group. And we're unsure if those instructors are allowed to be with a different group, you know, later on in the week. There's so many questions that are unanswered that we're trying to get the answers to. You know, it's very difficult to hire a staff when you only want them to working maybe for, you know, an hour out of the day or 2 hours out of the day. We've already been told by the schools that we do not have any access to their schools like we've been used to in the past. So we basically have to plan for weather and kind of go off of that. We do have about 10 returning staff members that are great staff members. So we're pretty confident that we can run some sort of programs for people, but we pretty much just started off with reinventing our entire summer program from scratch for right now. We have to throw everything out the window and start from scratch in terms of what we want to do. There will be a lot of virtual programs that we're working on. We have a lot of science programs that we have done in the past with outside companies. They're equipped to run some of those programs virtually. So we will be offering some of our video game design, our Lego design, some of the science programs. They're able and willing to do some of those programs online. And we're looking to towards doing some programs online, whether it's just arts and crafts or other virtual programs. But this summer is going to be very challenging for myself and Brian to really get something off the ground. But we feel that we can, because there's going to be a lot of kids that are staying home, and there's a lot of parents now that are staying home. The Boys and Girls Club, I know, just announced this morning that they will not be running their traditional camp program, which is very difficult for them. And then a lot of other local rec departments, you know, that I've been in contact with haven't even put up summer programs yet. And we just don't know what it looks like. So everything is just happening so quickly.
Yeah, well, thank you for that update. Is there a mechanism by which community members can share feedback to you? Is there a survey or anything you're doing to help identify things that might be most valuable to folks, or is it too early to have those things in place?
I mean, we definitely can send out a survey, but we're kind of in a crunch time in terms of getting programs up there. We would like to be able to have registration open for 2 weeks because we need to see who registers for what, so we can see what our staffing. Usually by now, we've already have the majority of our registration up and running, and we've already seen, not thousands, but hundreds of registrations already come in. We haven't had any registration. So we haven't had any money coming in as well. Most rec departments are very self-supporting. We are funded by a budget as well. It's a very small one, but for the most part, most local rec departments are self-supporting. So we're self-supporting with all of our fees and all of our, permit registrations from outside groups, and we haven't had anything come in. So it's going to be very challenging for this summer in terms of doing all those extra programs that money has paid for in the past is not going to be there this summer. So we're really going to be tight.
And I know the fall feels like 8 years away at this point, but do you have any inclination? Do you expect these types of restrictions and requirements to extend into the fall, or is there any insight you could provide us related to that kind of a scheduling?
So for a lot of the fall programming and a lot of this program that we do over the school year, we do inside the schools. I have not had a conversation with the school department whether or not they want me in the schools. A big part of our programming is basketball. We run a youth basketball program for over 800 children. And I am not sure the availability that the schools are going to give us. And I mean, it's up to them. They're obviously, on a crunch with finances as well. So I don't know. I do know that we will be able to this summer really start planning for more virtual programs with some outside groups in terms of some fitness programs. We have put out a bunch this summer. We did a kids dance online program that was very popular with a lot of people. So we can find some instructors to do that. It's just very difficult to charge people for virtual programs too. So we were trying to find a lot of instructors that were willing to do a lot of these things for free in hopes that once the fall opens up, people would like them and would want to sign up for the programs in the fall. So.
Well, my hope is too, if we get some good programming and we're short on funds, maybe we can do some kind of fundraising and things to keep these things accessible to the community. So definitely don't rule that out. One of the things I want to get some clarity on guidelines for. So I know people in the past have thought about like, can I just drop in for like a half day or 1 day instead of a multi-day program and things? It sounds like the guidelines you're getting from the state around what you're allowed to do or not is for any in-person classes, even with distancing, that might be challenging to do because it sounds like they want to keep the same set of students and instructors together. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, so that's the understanding that I'm getting, is that they want, cohorts together. So in other words, they don't want an instructor working with 10 kids in the morning on Monday, a different 10 kids on Tuesday, and a different 10 kids on Wednesday, because if somebody was to get sick, now you've got a lot of tracing. So I think what they really want is to see a group of 2 instructors working with just that same group, maybe weekly, or bi-weekly. So we're going to be pairing up a lot of our park instructors to do it that way. We haven't figured out what we'll do with them, if they're allowed to work with a group in the morning. Are they allowed to work with a group in the afternoon? Or are they allowed to do a socially distant program, whether we do an arts and crafts program where everybody stays socially distant? Is that technically allowed? There's just so many gray areas that we have so many questions on. And our Board of Health has been, very good on trying to get these answers from DPH from us.
Okay. Now there's some activities that feel easier to distance than others that don't require buildings. For example, a couple years ago, I think we had kayaks, and I think, certainly you need to do some, disinfecting of some of the equipment in between usages. I know that was a third party, I believe, that did that. Do we anticipate that coming back this summer? And also, I think there's been some fun runs and races types of things that we've done around Horn Pond and other areas. Do we anticipate those being able to move forward?
So in terms of the kayaks, that is definitely a great socially distant program. I know my assistant has reached out to 3 different kayaking companies. Whether or not we are able to actually get kayaks at Horn Pond, the company never emailed us back last year. I don't know if they got a huge crowd when they came and did it. They're obviously a business and they have to be able to make money as well. But if we can't do it on Horn Pond, we're hoping that maybe we can find a place that we can send people to, that they can either sign up with us or direct them to another place there's a lot of local rivers and a lot of local ponds around there where they can kayak. So kind of give people different avenues to do, whether it doesn't happen on Hon Pond. In terms of fun runs, there's no way I can foresee a crowd of people, doing a fun run. It's a small area. We have typically 60 to 80 kids that run it. Even if you split them up, you're talking about hours to really kind of get over that. And we don't necessarily have the funding for that. That comes in when we take in a lot of those registration. All that extra money goes towards that fun run. So we're looking towards doing some different virtual running programs. Maybe a run sheet where you check in with us, you sign up with it, you get a virtual run sheet. You have to log in a certain amount of miles, whether you're running, you're walking, you're exercising, and maybe hopefully by the end of the summer, by the fall, we'll be able to be in larger groups together and we can finish the race, the last mile together and kind of come together. But that's what we're looking towards. I don't foresee fun runs actually happening this summer, unfortunately.
Okay. Thanks for the update. It doesn't have to all be good news. At least we know, right? And that's something we have to understand. Community yard sale that typically happens in May. That was for obvious reasons canceled. Do we anticipate being able to do one later this summer or anything like that?
I would hope that we could have one in phase 3, but again, I haven't really seen anything about it in terms of guidelines regarding yard sales. I don't know. I would love to be able to do one in the fall. That's a very easy program and very simple for us to pull off. It's just really kind of collecting addresses. But again, it also comes down to, it's your own risk assessment. If you don't feel comfortable going to someone's yard sale, you don't have to go. And if you don't feel comfortable having a yard sale, you don't have to have one. So, that's something that hopefully we would be able to do in the fall, because a lot of people I think have been cleaning out their basements. So I think a lot of people have some stuff to get rid of, and the fall would be a great time to do it. So hopefully that's something that we can definitely do in the fall.
Yeah, I got my fingers crossed. I know we've participated in the past, both shopping and 1 year hosting, and it was a nice experience actually to be able to rehome a whole bunch of things and also say hello to some neighbors. But for the most part, there weren't big groups of people who came at the same time. It spread out across quite a number of hours. So we'll keep our fingers crossed. In terms of field usages, so the Woburn Rec is responsible for a number of our fields, baseball fields and other things, if I'm correct. Are there any guidelines on usage of those that we should be aware of or that you want the community to be aware of?
So we obviously just came out in phase 2 that youth sports can, begin. I have been in talks with many of the different youth organizations in terms of how they, want to open up. Right now, phase 2 for youth sports and for adult sports is groups of 10 only, no shared use of equipment. And you must maintain social distancing. If not, you must wear a mask. So, your typical baseball team could be 10, and that includes your coaches. They could go out and they could hit fly balls to the children as long as they were spread apart. I believe they can do that without a mask on. No sharing of helmets. I would think if you share bats or if you provide equipment, you would most likely have to wipe all of this down. I haven't really gone through all of the guidelines with a fine-tooth comb because a lot of it, it pertains to me, but I've been more focused on the pools and our programs that we need to run. But I have been in touch with all the youth organizations, all the adults. Sport games and any contact sports do not happen until phase 3. So everything in phase 2 is all skill-based, no contact. The only games that you're allowed are a tennis match, because obviously that's no contact. You're far away, or anything else. So phase 3, again, still haven't received guidelines in terms of what phase 3 actually looks like, what the gathering size is going to be in phase 3, whether they're going to allow. I've been hearing that, a lot of different people from, Little League corporate and all that have been on the, the board with the governor in terms of figuring out how that's going to work. I think we're going to hopefully see something in the next couple of weeks in terms of guidelines for that. But all of the youth sports and all the adult sports are ready, ready to start hitting the fields. The basketball courts, I believe, can open. However, it's the same thing with like the tennis courts. There's no pickup games, no scrimmages, which is going to be very difficult because, as you know, you probably see a lot of kids down there. They want to play basketball, and it's difficult to tell them no. And I can't be everywhere, you know, at one time to kind of tell them no. So we're going to open them up, and it's going to be for people to use, and you're supposed to use them responsibly.
Yeah. And there's definitely, so tennis courts and pickleball courts are open now with a reservation or an appointment. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we have never actually done reservations for tennis and pickleball courts, but we felt that there was going to be such a huge use for them that we thought would implement something. It made it very easy for us. So we actually have 2 pickleball nets so that we can maintain social distancing in between the pickleball courts. We've had reservations being made. They're supposed to be with people in your own households. You're not supposed to share equipment. We're not providing any of the equipment that we have typically had down there. Tennis court, same thing. And we've allowed people to actually make a reservation so that they show up to a tennis court, because at Woburn High, there used to be 4 tennis courts. Now there's only 2. So now at least if you make a reservation, you're kind of guaranteed your spot. You don't show up and you don't have to, you know, go find somewhere else to play. So you can go use them without a reservation. You just run the risk of somebody coming with an actual permanent reservation and kicking you out. And we haven't had too many calls, but probably about 5 or 6 a day for people to book something for the next day or for the weekend. So they are being used.
Good. Well, it's glad to see that they're being used. There's also been discussion in the past about having more programming that was available for folks who have different kinds of disabilities in our community. We know you're operating under already restrictions about what we can and can't do. Is there any programming that we're going to be able to get in this summer that is, you know, being more aware of those who might have physical disabilities or other types of disabilities that we want to try and support them, maybe through some of the virtual program, maybe through some of the specialty outdoor classes?
Yeah, so I've actually been in touch with one of our, she's a teacher, she's run some of our summer fun clinics and has helped out with them. So we actually had a chat today about different programming. We're hopeful that we can run some small programs in the morning. I do not know what the status is on summer school for those children. So I don't know if they're going to be in summer school, because then that will kind of really drive where we're going to be. In terms of if we run in the afternoon or if in the morning. And then we did talk about running some different virtual programs, different sensory programs where people might have to come pick up a packet, but we can do a Zoom call with, you know, 5 or 6 children, and the teacher can lead them through different activities as well. So we are trying to get some programs off, because I know the summer fun clinic that we've run in the past is very big. Part of that program, though, we go on a lot of field trips and we go in the pool, and there will be no field trips this year. That's already, you know, decided. So it's going to be very difficult, but we're hopeful that we can get something going, because, you know, we still have to maintain in that ratio as well of under 10 children. And when you're working sometimes with children with disabilities, some of them need, you know, more extra care versus some of them don't. So we have to just be aware of that. They haven't really said, it's been very vague in a lot of the guidelines in terms of that, because like there's some that are unable to wear a mask, you know, which is understandable. So there's a lot of different hurdles, but we're hopeful that we can get something off of the ground for that population.
Great, thank you. One of the things sort of related to that, some of the, maybe all of, you'll have to correct me about this, the playgrounds that I'm aware of that are handicap accessible to a wheelchair and have been designed specifically to support children with different types of physical disabilities, a lot of that is on the school properties. Are those school playgrounds going to be open this summer? It sounds like perhaps they're not.
I do not know. That is up to the school department. I can speak with them regarding it, because I know the one that's at the Shamrock is an important one. So maybe there's something where we can, you know, speak with them and they open up a couple of them. You know, obviously some of them, they might want to remain closed because they're behind the school building. I know the New World Wyman is behind that. But I know the one at the Shamrock is actually, you know, geared towards children in a wheelchair. So maybe that's something that we can get them to open, where especially you don't have to disinfect them or clean them. that it might be a little bit easier for them. So I've been in talks with, the grounds and building from Woburn, Dave Dunkley, and I can speak with him again and hopefully get some of those open.
I think that would be great. I think we'd love that, just given that there is a limited set of places where they can safely go and feel protected. And so even if we can just get the ones that are designed specifically for children with those physical disabilities open. And I totally understand why the schools are being careful about what is accessible and what isn't, and all the challenges and liabilities. But if there's anything we can do to support your efforts to get at least that open, I think there's a whole bunch of people in the community who would be cheering and grateful, and also happy to help do whatever it takes to support that. We know that there's not a whole bunch of staff waiting around to organize, clean, and do the things that keep these parks and playgrounds open. I'm just going to do a quick scan. I think I have asked you all the questions. You've been incredibly patient. I also want to thank the community because they were very, very helpful and open in submitting questions that they wanted to have us discuss today. So hopefully we've tackled the things that are most common for folks. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with the community about the work that you're doing, or things that you need from us to support your efforts, given that funding has not been where it would normally be at this point, and we recognize that programming is still, up in the air to a large part?
Yeah, I mean, this is very difficult time for everybody, in this whole community. And Woburn's a great place to live. I've grown up here, and it's nice to see everybody coming together during this. It's very difficult for myself. This is a lot to do in the next couple weeks, and to really get something up and running. So just for people to be patient on what we're trying to do. We're very well aware we're not going to make everybody happy. There's going to be people that are upset with some of the things we choose to do or choose not to do. And we're aware of that, but hopefully that we make the majority of our Woburn residents happy in what we can do. This is new for everybody. Nobody expected to ever switch to virtual like that. To reinvent your whole summer program in couple weeks is a very daunting task. And it's only myself and my assistant Brian down there. We have no secretary, so it's very difficult. We're answering a lot of emails, we're answering a lot of phone calls. We're putting in a lot of work and a lot of effort. There's a lot of effort that goes into it. It's not just programs and pools. There's fields, there's new construction, there's dog parks, there's facilities that we control that we have to maintain, and there's bills we have to pay. There's a lot of stuff that goes into running a rec department, but I'd like to think that both of us do a great job. He's been a big help, and it's a daunting task going forward, but we're excited, and we're hopeful that we will make this summer very good for the children, but it definitely will not be the summers in past that we have run. So I'm just really hoping that next summer everything is wide open and we can have a great summer. There'll be no Mayor's Field Day, most likely. There'll be no family night. The movie nights, which I don't think you mentioned, but
I just wrote myself a note to ask you about it because it had slipped my mind. So
yeah, I wrote everything down so I could be prepared and what needed to be said. So we have been working with the movie company. They actually are geared towards doing drive-in movies. So we're looking at possibly doing a drive-in movie at one of our fields, one of our big parking lots. It would be limited. We want to find a parking lot where we can get a large amount of cars in there. There are rules and regulations on drive-in movies that have already been out. So we've already looked at those. So we're very hopeful that we can do that. But the cost of those movies is a little bit more expensive than what we're used to. We're used to running 5 movies at Library Field because the cost of it is a little bit lower. So this cost is a little bit more expensive to do a drive-in movie. It's a bigger screen, it's higher up off the ground. We have to have an FM transmitter for it. So we just need to be able to figure out how many we actually can run, but we're pretty confident that we're going to be able to run at least 2. We're looking into possibly running 3, and we want to make sure that the Woburn residents get a chance to at least get an opportunity to go to one of them, because it's going to be a great experience for
I love that, and I can't wait for drive-in movies. And I hope I know I speak for the community when I say 2 things to you. So one is thank you for the work that you and Brian are doing. you're actually not alone. We're very empathetic, and there's a lot of people in the community that if you need an extra set of hands, an extra set of ideas, an extra set of things, please ask, because we know things are not normal. And so I've had lots of people say to me, you know, what do they need? We're here to help execute and make sure these things are available in a safe way that we can. The other thing that I would say is I think there's a number of people in the community who are willing to pay a little more than we do. Things that maybe used to be free will contribute, so the people who can't afford it can have it. You know, I know for me, I'm more than happy to pay to attend movie night if it means another couple of families get to come in and enjoy that experience also.
Yeah.
These are things we need so desperately to combine us as a community. So thank you for doing the work to see what we can do. And if we all got to write notes to the kayak company so they pay attention and return your calls, tell us. Like, seriously, I think there's this built up desire and need to do a lot of things that maybe we haven't always done in the past. It was so much limited, and no indoor places being able to go, and so many things that we can't do. Those few things we can do, I know you're going to get a lot of support for.
Yeah, I just ask that people send me an email, whether I return it or not. I do read a lot of them. I get a lot of emails. So, you know, I've tried to get back to everybody as soon as possible. But if you have a program idea, or if you have something that you might want to maybe run for us virtually, send me an email. You know, it's easier if I can communicate with you via email or over phone. You know, I know a lot of people use Facebook and Twitter. You know, when I'm on Facebook, I'm not on it as often. So it's very difficult when you go on and you see everybody, well, they should do this and they should do that. It's like, well, just send me an email and then maybe I can do that. You know, I don't not like to respond on Facebook or all that, but I'd like to be able to see that, just send that to me. I see so many things and they're like, well, is this open? Well, just call the rec department and ask. You know, I can tell you social media has become a big part of our world, and, you know, I'm adapting to it as well, but I'd really like to see if people have a program idea to just send me an email. I'm very easy to find, woburnrec.com, or Lindstrom at cityofwoburn.com, and I'd be happy to speak with you. If there's a specific program that you would like to see me offer, I'd be happy to talk with anybody regarding that and see if that's something we can offer, because everybody has different ideas. You know, I might have something completely different than somebody else, and, you know, I don't know what everybody wants to see. So
thank you for making yourself available and sharing all that contact information. We'll make sure to share that in the show. And please know that you're welcome on this program anytime. So as these programs get more defined, if you want to come back in a couple of weeks or 3 weeks and say, hey, we now have a program, here's all the updates. It's another way to, you know, share out with our community, and we're very happy to support you in that effort, because we want people to be able to participate in everything that we're able to offer them this summer. We know it'll be limited, so let's spread the word as best we can.
Great, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Great, thank you so much. And for those of you who are watching, thank you for joining us. We know that these are challenging times, but there is going to be an opportunity for some much needed relief. Personally, I am so eager for drive-in movies. I'm super excited about that. And it sounds like we have some other great ideas. So please share them with Rory and the team. Please be a little patient with us as we work through these things, and patient with each other as we start to open up playgrounds and parks and other things. We have to be neighborly with each other, and we know there's going to be high demand. So thank you for being able to take advantage of those opportunities, and let's make sure to continue to take care of each other.